Well, it's been a minute since I've done one of these kind of videos. This is a remake of an old video. This one I have less of a justification for compared to the last time I did this. I really just kind of wanted to do this for my own sake and to have better audio quality for it, because I care about that kind of thing. And also, I do have some unscripted rambling to do about the remake. So, enjoy. Bye-bye. Take a moment and tell me what the best zombie game is. Is it the overly dramatic Walking Dead Telltale series? Is it the fast-paced action of Call of Duty Zombies? Is it Resident Evil? Or is it the first two Dead Rising games? If you said any of those, you're wrong, because the best zombie game is Lollipop Chainsaw. Directed by everyone's favorite Suda51, Lollipop Chainsaw is a collaborative effort written by director James Gunn in his one and only video game credit. But you knew that. You've seen my remake essay video on Shadows of the Damned, right? The result is this, a game about a cheerleader that has to fight the hordes of the undead in order to save the world. Not the most complicated premise, and don't worry, it gets dumber. Our hero in this story is Juliet Starling, a high school senior and head cheerleader at San Romero High. You get it? The town is named after George Romero, the director who essentially created zombies as we know them. Super not clever at all. And today is a very special day. It's her birthday! But as Juliet bikes to school, things seem a little funky because holy shit, there are zombies everywhere! And so Juliet does what any reasonable person would do and pulls out her handy custom-made chainsaw. See? I told you it gets dumber, and don't worry, soon enough we'll be flying off rails you didn't even know were there. So for this remake essay, I'm going to talk about the story, the gameplay, the soundtrack, the characters, and a lengthy analysis of Juliet, a very disjointed ramble on some miscellaneous stuff, and the completion process, and especially new to this edition, I'm going to talk about RePop, since when I first made this video and wrote this script, RePop didn't exist yet, and believe you me, I have some thoughts about that game. So anyway, get your pom-poms, rev up your chainsaw, and have a good supply of dum-dums on hand, because it's time you know about the greatest game ever made, and its, admittedly controversial remake. So, today is Juliet's birthday. There are zombies, she has a chainsaw, alright, cool, got it. You start the game in the parking lot of San Romero High, blah blah, you get it. Then you learn your basic combat moves. You've got a pom-pom attack, a high chainsaw slash, a low chainsaw slash, plus a dodge that you could use for some real fun combos, and as a dodge. Who would have thought the dodge button functions as a dodge? Anyhows, run through the parking lot, slaying zombies, saving students, and collecting medals, the in-game currency needed to buy all of your upgrades, costumes, and all that fun stuff. Get a phone call from mom on your chainsaw phone. Everyone knows about the chainsaw phone, included on all chainsaws, right? All while you race to reach the school and find Nick. Now, who's Nick, you may be asking? He's Juliet's boyfriend, and as you reach the front of the school where he is, he gets bit by a zombie and the credits roll. You've failed. But you haven't, because Juliet has an idea involving chainsaws and magic, and it fades to black, you're thrown onto the map screen, and you move on into the school. From the map, you can access Juliet's room, which serves as a menu to check collectible progress, change outfits, and check the leaderboards. We'll touch on the leaderboards later, but for now, back to the story. The next level starts with the camera blinking in a disoriented POV, and eventually goes to a third person as Nick wakes up in a classroom, head in Juliet's lap. He goes to move and can't because he's literally just a head. Just like that, Nick is literally a talking head. And of course he's freaking out. in comparison to Juliet, who's struggling to break the fact to Nick that she's actually a zombie hunter. Her whole family, except her mom, are zombie hunters, and it's hilarious. But back to the situation at hand, Juliet gets up, throws Nick into the air before he lands connected to a cord attached to Juliet's skirt. Yeah, we're carrying a decapitated head around with us for no reason at all, and it's the best. Nick is understandably losing his mind as Juliet does zombie hunter things, going through the school trying to find this dude, Morikawa. Morikawa is your best bet for figuring out what is going on, so you gotta go find him. Explore the school, discover that someone is strapping dynamites to zombies, save some lives, and keep fighting. At one point, you reach the first of many games, and this one is zombie basketball. The goal is to decapitate as many zombies as possible and shoot the required number of heads into the basket before the time limit reaches 0. Eventually, you'll reach the cafeteria, where you meet the mentor character on the hero's journey, Morikawa. He's Juliet's zombie hunting teacher, and of course he is a zombie hunting pervert that Juliet is too oblivious to realize is a sleazeball, but he does know what's going on, and it's insane. So there's 3 realms, essentially just heaven, earth, and hell, and someone is trying to merge hell and earth through some ancient ritual crap and explosions. With this in mind, go on down to the main floor of the cafeteria and see a birthday cake. Aww, how sweet, someone baked a cake for you. But wait a minute. It's made of dynamite. And flaming zombies are approaching. Ay caramba! Kill them all and get out of the building when zombies strapped with dynamite and wheelbarrows get thrown into the mix. Explosions, explosions, explosions. Things go boom and we're outside and we see the man behind the apocalypse ritual. This generic gothic loser named, insert correct name here, I actually still don't remember his name. Sorry, buddy. Morikawa gets killed, Juliet gets launched into a junkyard, and there's a big ol' boss here. His name is Zed, and he's beyond annoying, from his voice to his word choice and all of that. It's not a good time, but introduces the core ideas in every video game boss fight ever. You dodge, slash, and whittle down the health bar until you get to run your chainsaw through them and to get to the next phase. 3 phases of boss and call it a day. Eventually cut through Zed, and hey, Zed's dead, baby. Well, dead again anyway. Morikawa comes down from an elevator from heaven to give you a special gift, a new ability, the Chainsaw Dash. Level 2, you're approaching the school stadium because there's something about a heavy metal zombie Viking demon landing a boat in the school's unrealistically large swimming pool. Also, as you see on the boat, your older sister Cordelia is hanging off the side with her sniper rifle. Because why wouldn't your zombie hunter sister have a sniper? It just makes sense. Anyway, she throws your present and you gotta go catch it. Since you've got a new power, you gotta learn how to use the Chainsaw Dash, which leads to some really fun stuff, but you gotta go fast. Do your thing with the chainsaw, cut some zombos in half, find some new variations of zombies, and keep on slashing. Fly through the school, chainsaw dashing to your heart's content, save some kids, play some zombie basketball, all that fun stuff. Keep fighting your way to Cordelia's present, and eventually you'll reach it as you do a big jump, using your chainsaw dash off the top of a building as it collapses. Catch the parachuting gift and glide down onto the field for a game of zombie baseball. You open your gift and it's a new upgrade. This one is one of the most useful in the entire game because it's the Chainsaw Blaster, which unjustifiably is not a gun that shoots out chainsaws. Regardless, you use your newfound tool to blast away the hordes of the undead in zombie baseball. The goal here is simple. Shoot zombies to keep Nick alive as he runs the bases 3 times and you'll win. It's pretty simple and easy to do. Even on the hardest difficulties, it's still a cakewalk, and anyone who tells you that zombie baseball is hard in either version of the game just sucks at video games. Pro tip, you can shoot the zombies as they're coming out of the ground for an easy kill. Regardless, win the game, and eventually you'll reach the next boss. For the quick lore I forgot to mention, there are 5 demon zombie things called the Dark Purveyors, and you gotta kill them all to stop the rot, the thing that's merging Earth and Hell, from spreading. And upon defeating all of the Dark Purveyors, it should reverse the spell and everything goes back to normal. And back to the story as it's happening, Juliet and Nick reach the comically large swimming pool and meet up with Cordelia. There's some jokes about Nick not being what she expected to see, what with him being just a head dead and all that. And this fun family moment is interrupted when you gotta continue your quest to save the world. Get onto the boat and watch as it uses ancient heavy metal Viking magic to start flying around the world. Your boss fight here is Vic, who unjustifiably is not voiced by Jack Black, and this is an error I cannot forgive. How do you have a heavy metal Viking character and not have it voiced by Jack Black? I mean, Psychonauts 2 had a, albeit not heavy metal, but still a musician, Viking voiced by Poe from Kung Fu Panda, so why not have the dude from Tenacious D play this role? But alas, this isn't relevant. And so, let's get back to the task at hand, cutting a zombie Viking into pieces with a chainsaw. You know the drill: hack, slash, and blast the Viking man through the 3 phases of the fight, and eventually cut him into pieces and win. After beating him, you watch as the boat crashes down at the O'Bannon Farms, and you go from there. Brief side note, most of the named locations are named after famous directors within the world of zombie movies, like the town being named San Romero after George Romero, who basically invented the modern zombie. O'Bannon Farms is named after Dan O'Bannon, who wrote many films, most notably Alien 1979 and Aliens 1986, and he directed the cult zombie favorite Return of the Living Dead in 1985. Later on in level 4, you reach the Fulci Fun Center, which is named after Italian schlock film director Lucio Fulci, known for making incredibly shitty and cheap zombie movies in Italy. There's some useless trivia for you to know, and now we get back to your regularly scheduled chaos. Upon entering the farm, I hope you're ready to shoot the ever-loving hell out of some zombos, because you're gonna do it a whole lot in this level. The core story part here is you hunting down yet another dark purveyor, and you've got to save your younger sister Rosalind from herself and her bus. Rosalind, about 16 years old, is actually feral, and she apparently bought a bus. She, of course, is terrible at driving, because again, she's 16 years old, but may as well be a 10-year-old. Engage in a little shooting of zombies, primarily shooting them off the bus as Rosalind has an aneurysm while driving a bus. Eventually, you reach a giant mushroom, and you have only one choice: cut that bitch in half and start tripping balls. So, Juliet and Nick are hallucinating, and they fight a massive zombie chicken named Chat. I'm not kidding, this is a real mini-boss and it's great. Cut the chicken's head off and wake up on a combine, and Juliet happens to know how to drive one. And in the original game, the music begins to blare and you're immediately presented with a goal: kill 100 zombies. And so, you start the Lollipop Chainsaw Massacre. As the massacre goes on, this is why I specified in the original the music begins to blare, because in the original you hear "You Spin Me Round Like a Record" by Dead or Alive, and it's such a wonderful scene full of 80s cheese as you commit vehicular manburger helper. This is the first time I have to mention RePop and deviate from the script here, because RePop does not have this. RePop doesn't have any of the licensed music outside of Lollipop by the Chordettes, and it's a sin that I can't forgive. It is one of the most harmful things about that remake, but we'll talk more about the remake later. Reach your target goal and eventually keep moving towards your goal. Shoot some more zombos both on and off a bus, and eventually reach another mushroom. Engage the shroom again and fight 3 giant zombie chickens. Same old drill, same old cock decapitation. And then you get to fight the heads again. And this time they're attached to these giant finger things, and so you get a cool little mini-boss. And I get to say cocks without it needing to be censored because I'm talking about roosters and nothing else whatsoever.
Cocks.
Move on. Wake up on yet another combine, engage in another harvest of 300 zombies, while you need to dodge some exploding scarecrows. It's some real funky stuff, and eventually you spin me right round into a nice easy boss fight after the longest level in the game. This fight is against Mariska. She is an easy fight, primarily centered on dodging and shooting, and as you progress further into the fight, it gets more chaotic, with multiple versions of Mariska spawning into existence, and being more things to shoot. After she's defeated, Nick and Juliet wake up at the crash site of the boat, and Rosalind isn't there? And she's been kidnapped by an auto-tuned zombie that wants to be Rick James. Well, at least you know where Rosalind is being held captive. And hey look, Juliet's dad is here to give his daughter and her boyfriend's disembodied head a ride. And after a real fun and awkward introduction to Dad, you reach the Fulci Fun Center, make a plan, and get to zombie murder. I do not like the Fulci Fun Center in either version of the game, for the exact reason I should love this level. But we'll get there when we get to the hellish nightmare that is the gondola game. The fucking gondola game. You've got a gimmick for this level. You gotta climb a tower and make your way through each floor via the power of arcade minigames. The first minigame is easy. It's a key collection minigame where you have to avoid this bootleg fez-wearing Pac-Man. It's a nice, easy game that I don't really hate. Do the zombie killing like normal and keep climbing up the tower. The next game is essentially elevator action, and it's a pretty fun little minigame. It does have an infinite coin trick that I won't explain here, so just know that it's there if you need it. And on an unrelated note, it's got one of my favorite interactions in the game. Nick is a basic guy who isn't a gamer or as into games as Juliet is, and he says, "I guess I'm into side-scrollers from time to time," to which Juliet responds with, "Oh Nick, now isn't the time to be talking dirty," and it's a pretty good joke. I appreciate it. Moving onwards and upwards, you'll eventually reach the worst thing in this entire game, the gondola game. And if this doesn't strike fear into your heart, you either have never played the game, or you're a weak baby man who hasn't tried to complete the game. Now, the core of this minigame is simple. You are literally climbing the tower in a window cleaner's gondola, dodging and shooting things as you make your way to the top. Sounds simple, right? Well, you'd be partially correct, because when you get to utilize the gun, it's really easy. But to climb the tower without shooting a single bullet is a nightmare, and it's an issue I overcame, and I never want to attempt it again. But again, play your part and see it through, and eventually you'll get to the top. Reach the roof, do some cheerleader stuff, and approach the boss. Josie James, bitch, has a UFO, and you gotta do what you gotta do. But this time, it's only 2 phases, and phase 1 is not great, but phase 2 is nice and simple. And it's where the never-ending freakiness begins. To quote the boss when he launches an actual UFO and starts hurling towards space. It's a funky concept, but it's really easy, and it's almost like they compensated for how awful the gondola game is by simply giving a easier ending fight. It's not hard at all, and it's better than the rest of the level. Back to the story, as you go in for the kill, Josie James, bitch, reveals that if you kill him, Rosalind will die because reasons. Then Dad literally explodes her out of the ship, and you get to commit cutting in half. Then you get to do the epic video game cliche and not look at the exploding UFO! As you dive through the air before parachuting down to Dad and Rosalind, before regrouping with the rest of the family at the cathedral. We're nearing the home stretch. It's time for level 5, the final Dark Purveyor, and he's hiding out somewhere in the unfinished cathedral, so get to the cutting off heads. A fun little thing with this level is needing to survive for certain periods of time so Cordelia can shoot a way open for you, or start shooting zombies to make your life easier. Not much story happens during this level, so we'll gloss over all the weird and unique gameplay sections and skip straight to the boss. This time, the boss is the rock and roll zombie man Louis Legend. He's an interesting fight with a really absurd amount of phases that are really varied compared to the others. That said, it's still a cakewalk of chopping off limbs like it's Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, because the real boss fight here is against the motorcycle that turns into an elephant mech, because why wouldn't it turn into that? Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention Louis has a machine gun guitar, because why not? This will be important in about 2 sentences or so. After defeating the metal elephant mech, chop Louis into bits and be free from the rot because he was the last one. But then the emo kid from level 1 comes into the arena, says that you played perfectly into his plan and the ritual is now complete, and he shoots himself in the head with the machine gun guitar. See? I told you that would be important in 2 sentences. And thus, the emo kid's plan has been complete, and the final boss has appeared in the middle of San Romero, and its name is the Killabilly, or as I like to call him, Kaiju Zombie Demon Elvis. He is what the ritual summoned, and it's now or never to save the world from becoming nothing but zombies. So get to it, Juliet. Level 6 is unique. You have to make your way to the boss by cutting cars in half, chainsaw dashing, and dodging collapsing buildings. It's a really fast section where the bulk of what happens is Juliet becoming more and more unsure about if she can kill Kaiju Zombie Demon Elvis or not. Sure, she's killed leprechauns, Sasquatches, and a whole tribe of Frankenberries. Like, from the cereal? Ugh, that's just totally propaganda to make you trust them. And those were all easy. But this is something she'd never trained for, so we gotta do what we've done the whole game. Launch ourselves headfirst into danger and take this beast down. The first part is easy. You just gotta shoot Killabilly in the eyes until his health bar is depleted and dodge his attempts to pull your head off. Not so hard. Then you gotta slice and dice him while you're on a flat surface as he throws cars at you, and eventually you gotta run up his arm and attempt to go down the mouth of the beast, because the only way to defeat him is to blow him up from the inside. You're on the arm and you've got no way to get into the beast. All seems lost, but then Dad comes in on a motorcycle covered in dynamite and flies straight into the face of the beast, blowing its head up and himself along with it. Juliet loses her mind at the loss of her dad, but Nick tells her to make her dad proud and save the world. And one quick cheerleader jump later, we're inside the beast and heading towards the heart. Upon reaching it, you see the emo kid's headless corpse attached directly to the heart, acting as a brain of sorts. And if you remember what to do when you see a headless body, you'll know that it's Nick's time to shine. One last time. Juliet, of course, starts crying because she has to sacrifice the head that she's tried so long to save. And Nick tells her that it's okay, because for the first time he feels like he can actually do something, like he's actually a zombie hunter. Juliet understands, attaches Nick to the body, and kisses him goodbye before Nick does what he needs to do and makes the body explode. We cut to space, or more specifically, Nick's head floating up to heaven, when his ascension is suddenly interrupted by Morikawa telling him that the gods are giving him another chance at life. But somewhere along the way, something got mixed up, but don't worry about it, bud. We then cut to Juliet, broken and defeated, mourning the loss of her dad and her boyfriend, when she hears something behind her, and of course, it's Nick. The lovers run towards each other with the camera cutting back and forth between them until the embrace, where it's revealed that Nick is now really short, because the mix-up that happened was Nick receiving Morikawa's body. That sleazy dirtbag really convinced the gods to give Nick a chance at life again, but gave Nick his body. But whatever, it's funny and kinda sweet that Juliet didn't lose her boyfriend on her birthday. Then we see the sisters approaching and they're helping Dad move because he lived! He managed to survive the explosion. However, he needs you to know that he now only has one testicle because he lost the other one in the kaboom. The family and Nick are all together now, and they head home to finally celebrate Juliet's birthday, and they walk there as the credits roll. Upon reaching the house, one of two things can happen, because surprise, surprise, there are two endings to this game. Now, the bad ending is what you're likely to see first, because it means you didn't save all of the survivors throughout each level, and by process of elimination, you can guess how you get the good ending. Both endings start with everyone going into the house to see Mom, and upon reaching the kitchen, she's acting a little strange and not facing the camera. Now is where the endings diverge. In the bad ending, or the horrid birthday ending, Mom is actually a zombie and everyone is losing it, and it ends on a black screen with a blood-red fin displayed on screen. The happy birthday ending is the real ending of the game, as it has Mom turning around with Juliet's cake ready to be served, and you see everyone sat around the table talking about their day, and Nick gives Juliet her birthday present from the start of the game. It's a box of flowers with a thing of lollipops in the bottom that spell out Finn. And it's a nice, simple, and sweet ending to the game. And so, that's the very simple story of Lollipop Chainsaw. That's not all the game has to offer, though. Oh, no, no, no. We'll get to everything else the game has to offer. Because trust me, there's a lot it has to offer. So, the story is simple and not the forefront of the experience. So what is? The gameplay is, and my god, the gameplay is so good. It's simple. You really have the basic combat moves, but you do have a shop, and this is where the fun begins. You can purchase a variety of combos, from a more advanced combo that combines pom-pom hits to stun and a chainsaw to slice for maximum damage, to a move that basically gives Juliet a sonic spin dash, to the more advanced ground spin that's so helpful for clearing out crowds. The combat is the real focus. I mean, it's a hack and slash game for God's sake. But there is another crucial element in the gameplay that stands above the combat in a sense, and it's the dialogue. The conversations between Juliet and Nick are where the real heart of the game is, and it's really fun to watch these two's dynamic. I don't want to get too far into this now because I want to talk about the characters more in depth later, and I'm definitely going to talk about Juliet extremely in depth and academically later on, so let's keep this brief. The dynamic here is one where Juliet is completely unfazed by the insanity of the situation she's in, and Nick is the proverbial straight man, where he acts as the audience's surrogate into the world of the game. They also act as an interesting contrast, where Juliet is perpetually positive and Nick just wants to die because he's literally just ahead. Again, they have an interesting set of dynamics, and that's where a lot of the heart of the game comes in. Within the dialogue, you have a lot of really fun things. When you save survivors, there's always some dumb statement like, "Juliet, I'm so totally gonna masturbate to you tonight. Girls in Kenya have big butts. Don't worry about the smell. I just shit myself. Haha, Easter egg," presumably said by James Gunn. "I never thought I'd be saved by someone with such great tits." And my favorite president is Warren G. Harding, just to name a few. I've kind of neglected this up until now, but you can kind of tell that this game is from 2012, and in all honesty, it doesn't hurt the quality of the game, and if anything, it adds a certain charm to it. You could say it's a product of its time, and I'd say it's a product of being written by James Gunn in the earlier parts of his career. Not to say that the writing is bad, far from it. It just feels a little dated, that's all. But compare this to other media of the era, this still holds up so well, and the game is still genuinely really funny. And of course, some real humor and engagement in the game can be found in the Zombie Journal. I think that's what it's called, but I need you to understand that one of the things you do is kill these special named zombies, and as you collect all of them, you can read the descriptions in Juliet's room, and you'll find some fun stuff. My personal favorite was a joke about a zombie who once choreographed an entire dance routine to Pink Floyd's The Wall alone in her room. It's a small touch, but I really appreciate the stupid jokes like that. Another thing I appreciate is the zombie whose favorite movie was the third Toxic Avenger movie, which is a small reference to a movie made by Troma, and that is the production company that James Gunn got his start with. It's great, simple, and so cool. Such a fun little Easter egg. I do actually want to take a moment and talk about the music, regardless of how brief this section is, because I need you to understand that the music in this original game owns. From the licensed music to the OST, it's all amazing and I need to talk about it. The game has a variety of music types in it, from 80s pop to metal in the licensed soundtrack, to the rock, punk, funk, and more from the OST. And I want to talk about some of my favorite soundtrack bits in the game. Of course, I would be missing a huge thing if I didn't talk about how every time you use the shop, it plays Lollipop by the Chordettes. It's extremely cliche, and they even used it in the trailer, from what I remember being a child when it came out anyways, but it acts as a really fun contrast to everything else happening. For example, I was doing a run in the Fulci Fun Center, and I accidentally entered the shop while fighting, and it was a really funny moment to go from fighting for my life to hearing a song about lollipops. It's really dumb, but I kinda love it. It's weird moments like these that really define the game. And speaking of defining the game, the best track in the game is called First Date Zombie Edition, and it's such a wonderful song that I can listen to on loop. It's great and really drives in that Suda51 punk style that makes his game so good. And again, to go back to the farm, the tractor combine minigame where it plays You Spin Me Round Like a Record by Dead or Alive is so much fun, and really implements the 80s cheese that makes James Gunn's work so James Gunn, for lack of a better term. And another defining choice was the usage of Hey Mickey by Tony Basil whenever you use your Sparkle Hunter mode. It's one of the best parts in the game, in a game full of amazing parts. The soundtrack really helps sell the experience, and it makes running through the stages a lot more fun, especially because you're allowed to pick the background music you want to play. So enjoy making the strangest playlists you can, because no matter how you do it, it'll be a banger. Or rather, it was a banger, because this is where I get to talk about RePop explicitly. Yeah, one of my biggest complaints about RePop as a remake is that they didn't get all of the music back. In particular, they only got the license to use Lollipop, and they didn't get the rights at all to use Hey Mickey, and they replace Hey Mickey with an anime theme version of some original thing. It's not bad. The problem is, it's just not Hey Mickey, and it doesn't hit the same. It's truly like a really jarring experience if you've played the original game. Going into RePop, yeah, it looks better visually, but the music isn't there, and it definitely harshes the vibe a bit, especially the Combine, because the Combine minigame doesn't have You Spin Me Round, and it feels empty. It genuinely feels like there is something missing because they didn't want to pay the licensing fees. And, you know, I understand, I get it, licensing fees can be expensive, especially for music, but come on, it's such an integral part of the game's identity, and it not being here really sucks, you know? Anyway, this whole tangent was unscripted, so we're gonna get back to the script, shall we? So, the characters. There's a few to talk about, so let's just get to it and start with a few of the dark purveyors. Zed should have stayed dead. He's so annoying and his dialogue is still atrocious. Like his line when you cut him in half for the first time being, "You think you hurt me, bitch? I just jizzed a little." Or how he constantly calls Juliet a vanilla slut, or zombie hunting slut, or any other variation of slut you can think of, all in this really nasally and whiny voice. To be fair, he does sound like the sexist and misogynistic wannabe punk that he is supposed to be, and the voice actor does a good job of making this work, but dear God, he sucks as a character. He does, however, make Juliet and Nick reference My Chemical Romance's song Teenagers, or as Nick calls it, Teenager, so I'll give Zed a small pass. Not because I like My Chemical Romance as a band, but I do appreciate The Black Parade as an album. I just want to clarify that. Let's see. For the purveyors, there's Vic, who should have been voiced by Jack Black. Mariska is a violent zombie hippie. Josie James, bitch, is wearing a diaper and is implied to be a child molester, and Louis Legend is somewhat of a Chad in all honesty. There isn't much to say on him outside of the basic descriptions or things I've already said, but I am required to talk about him. Anyone can talk about those dead dorks as much as they want, but we all know that at the end of the day, it's about family. So let's talk about Juliet's. I like Mom, even though she barely appears in the game. I appreciated all of the times she calls you during the middle of a level. She's a very supportive mom, and I like her interactions a lot. Plus, the one time you get to see Mom, she has a great outfit. Dad is an alright character. He calls Nick a fruit at one point, and that line got me pretty good. I laughed very hard at that, and it killed me. So, well played, game. Well played. He's weirdly protective over Juliet, and the game plays this up to a comical extent, like everything else. Rosalind is Rosalind. That's all I have to say about her. Actually, I lied. Rosalind is absolutely insane and worth talking about. Of all the things in the game, the jokes about her are kind of funny sometimes, like her inability to drive any vehicle without killing hundreds of zombies, or the fact that her emotions change at the drop of a hat. It's an unhinged character in an unhinged family. And Cordelia is here, I guess. Of course, the secondary protagonist here deserves a special mention. Nick has an odd role to fill, as he has to act as the proverbial straight man. Where Juliet is perpetually positive and is essentially a ball of sunshine, Nick, post-headectomy, is anything but that. He's the audience surrogate, as I said before, which means he's the only character in the game to appropriately acknowledge how insane this all is. There's probably some interesting literary thing I could analyze, but I ain't an English nerd. We'll get to that later. Nick is one of the weaker parts of the game to me, even still, but I do think he does have some good stuff throughout the game, and as a character, he's alright. Nick and Juliet have a great relationship, and I love how much they actually care about each other by the end. A lesser writer would have gone the obvious route, given how dumb Juliet is, and made Nick a complete asshole, but not here. Nick actually has a very sweet and wholesome relationship with Juliet while still being a teenager whose in-game bio lists masturbation as one of his hobbies. It's interesting, there's probably more I could say, but I've been saving my academic bullshit for critically analyzing and breaking down Juliet's character, which, speaking of... With everything in mind, my thoughts on Juliet are quite simple. Juliet Starling is one of the greatest protagonists in any video game ever. She's unapologetically who she is, and I think it's in large part due to the performance of her voice actress. She needs little introduction because she's one of the most prolific voice actresses to have ever graced the industry, which is a long-winded way to say that Juliet is voiced by Tara Strong. She really brings so much to the character, and her performance really is among the best things in the game. She's always great, and as controversial as it is for me to say, I think this might be one of her greatest performances. Juliet is a very fun character. From how she doesn't acknowledge how insane the world around her is, to how she is exactly who she wants to be, it's honestly very inspiring to see. On the same token, while she could come off as extremely vapid, she has an arc, and it's a pretty deep one at that, especially for a game that's as exploitative and silly as this one. See, a crucial part of the game is the relationship between her and Nick, and I've kinda kept something from you, my dear reader, until now. The relationship between Juliet and Nick grows throughout the game. While she loves her boyfriend, she quite literally objectifies him when she turns him into a talking head, and she carries him around with her for the entire game. He's been stripped of everything that made him a human, and she continues to carry him around regardless of his desire to die. But is it him that she loves, or the idea of him? James Gunn mentions this in a fascinating interview linked somewhere, and he says, quote, Nick is objectified by Juliet. He's literally turned into an accessory, a commodity, and his humanity is denied. Nick is not only emasculated, he is super emasculated. He starts off as this cool high school jock, and he thinks his girlfriend is this demure cheerleader, and then discovers she is 1,000 times tougher, that is, more traditionally masculine, than he'll ever be. And on top of that, he loses his body and penis, which is just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. But within this emasculation, Nick has to find some worth other than being the strong one. He needs to find strength through trust, and Juliet needs to learn how to let go of control. So yes, that is definitely gender role reversal. That said, while writing it, I didn't think of this in terms of gender, I thought of it in terms of character and plot. I think males and females, and especially teenage males and females, tend to commodify each other, and that's a dangerous thing to any relationship. End quote. It's something that really provides growth to this character that could easily be seen as a moronic stereotypical bimbo. Juliet has three simple desires, really. She wants to be loved, she wants a perfect body, and she wants to have control. And it's that last part that's the most interesting thing to me. She really does everything she can to take control from the moment she gets thrown off her bike. She decapitates Nick when he gets bit by a zombie and carries him around the entire game, using him to make things happen and keeping him around when he really wants nothing more than the sweet release of death. She has ultimate control in this situation, and yet she learns that she can't always be in control of everything. She's ultimately the reason that the killability comes to Earth, because she tried to take control and stop the apocalypse. She prevented Nick from dying because she took control, but that ended up causing a lot of harm to their relationship. Her problems stem from her constantly trying to be in control of what's happening, and in the end, she has to let go. Nick had his moment to be a hero instead of an object, and Juliet learns that thing I've been talking about for the past several words. She also ends up learning that she does love Nick as a person, which I feel is why she ultimately was so destroyed by having to sacrifice him. She starts off really just liking Nick in a very superficial way, and by the end, there is a genuine love there, and it's very sweet to see. Academic shit aside, I love her endless positivity, her unapologetic obliviousness, and her insanity. I know I just spent a good chunk of words talking about how complex of a character she is, but that's not why I like her so much. I like her because she's just a super fun and unique character. She's unhinged, delightfully weird, she's extremely capable, and she could absolutely kick my ass into oblivion. But above all else, she is who she chooses to be, and that's something everyone should strive to be. She comes off as being completely aware of how much the game sexualizes her, and she embraces it wholeheartedly, with a constant wink to the camera when she does some more provocative poses and actions. She takes it all in stride and never looks back in shame, and I love that. I love a character that is exactly who they want to be, even down to the combat integrating her skills as a cheerleader into her skills as a zombie hunter. It's all so good, and is why I can say that Juliet is one of my favorite video game characters ever. I would be missing something if I didn't at least say that I'm aware of the numerous feminist readings that exist for Juliet, but I don't think I can accurately talk about those, as I am but a man. There's a lot to talk about there, but I'm kinda unqualified to do so, and thus I leave it to you to seek out more if you're so inclined. I would recommend it because there are definitely some fascinating takes on the game and Juliet out there from people far more qualified to talk about them than I am. While there is a variety of opinions, I tend to find that most of the recent analysis tends to be very positive, and in one article I'll have linked somewhere, they praised Juliet for being a unique breakdown of many stereotypes, and yeah, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's a really good analysis. It's linked somewhere in here, and it's written by people more qualified than I am. So just to wrap this up, yeah, I'm aware of how insane it is for me to be praising this game as much as I have. I mean, I'm not oblivious to my situation, but I will say my thoughts unashamed and unapologetically, and I will stand by them. Juliet Starling is one of the greatest characters in any video game ever, and anyone that tells you otherwise has clearly never played this gem of a game. I want to mention that most reviews of the time for this game are absolutely wrong, to the point where I was asking, did we play the same game? I understand why this game would be divisive, especially given who made it, but to call the game anything short of amazing is to miss the point. There's so much to love here, and I cannot recommend it enough, nor can I disagree with IGN's review of the game enough. Them only giving this a 5 out of 10 originally feels so morally wrong. And I need to ask this question again. Did we play the same game? Apparently we didn't, because when they say the game gets old fast, I'd say this game is the most fun I'd had completing a game in years. When they say Nick is one of the most consistently funny things in the game, I couldn't disagree more, because Nick is pretty hit or miss in all actuality. And don't even get me started on how they completely missed Juliet's character being the strongest thing in the game, completely missed that the combat of the game is extremely fast-paced and fun, and completely missed how absolutely unique the game is overall. I know I've said it already, but did we even play the same game? I feel like this just comes off as ranting, and I'll wrap this up soon-ish. But I need this to be understood. Lollipop Chainsaw is one of the most unique and fun games I've ever played, and I've played a lot of games. To only give this game a 5 out of 10 is an injustice greater than Psychonauts 2 being robbed by Deathloop in every category at the Game Awards in 2022. Yeah, that's how you can tell when I wrote this, by the way. That was a relevant, timely joke. Moving past my blind baby rage at the ineptitude of critics, I'd like to talk about zombie games in general and why this game stands out above the rest. We'll start with a brief crash course in the history of zombies. As you didn't expect, zombies originated in Haitian folklore, but these aren't the zombies you know now, these are voodoo zombies. Given what I can find as someone who isn't an expert in folklore, these are reanimated corpses that function more as a servant to a witch or voodoo practitioner. And these ideas get adopted by other cultures, and in 1968, the world of zombies was forever shaken with George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Now, yes, I am aware that this is to ignore some history with like French film like J'accuse, which is technically the first zombie movie, but I don't acknowledge it in that regard. This is a conversation for a different day. I'm sorry. This film shifted zombies from being a corpse coming back to life under the control of a witch to a mindless entity that hungers for human meat. Then in 1996, you get a certain little indie game on the PlayStation that you've never heard of called Resident Evil, which is widely credited as introducing science into zombies, and from there you generally know the rest. Now, back on topic, zombie games are widely believed to have started in 1984 with Zombie Zombie, but technically it starts in 1982 with Entombed, but that isn't clear at all that it's about zombies, so Zombie Zombie it is then. Then we get 1996 with Resident Evil, and it's definitely a game. I'm personally not a huge Resi fan, but I get what it did. It focused on the horror and survival aspects that a creature like zombies could work within, and video games were changed forever as a result. And I'm gonna skip straight to 2006 with the release of a timeless classic, Dead Rising. This was a game changer, as it was unintentionally a comedy. The concept of being locked in a mall full of zombies for 3 days with nothing but the items within the mall to defend yourself could be used in a terrifying way, is instead used as a comedy here. Dead Rising is a very funny game, given how old and outdated it is and the cutscenes and facial animations, but it's a very fun game, and I do love Dead Rising and the far superior Dead Rising 2. And it's a shame that Dead Rising 3 and 4 never happened, because if they stuck with the black comedy aspects of the two good games, instead of going ultra bleak and serious, they could have cemented a franchise of amazing comedy games. Maybe one day I'll cover Dead Rising properly, but that's a problem for a future Glazed Ham. Then there's a lot of other games that I personally don't care about, because I like my zombie games fun, chaotic, and stupid like Dead Rising 2, and not serious and dramatic character dramas like Telltale Walking Dead series or Dead Rising 3 and 4, which don't exist. Because a serious zombie story needs to grab me, but most just don't interest me. But what makes Lollipop Chainsaw stand out above the rest? Well, it's quite simple, and it's a combination of Suda51's style, James Gunn's writing, and of course, a cheerleader with a chainsaw. I've already talked ad nauseum about all of the previously mentioned things, so I'll say this game leapfrogs over the competition and does a sick-ass 360 backflip while chainsawing them in half at the same damn time. It's amazing how something this unapologetically goofy is just leagues above anything else. As much as I love Dead Rising 2, this game is just more unapologetically crazy all the way through. And I think that's what sets Lollipop Chainsaw apart and makes it better than the rest. It's a truly special vision, and that goes a long way in a genre dominated by series like Resident Evil and The Walking Dead. As I wind down, I want to address the director and his work. I absolutely love Suda51 games that I've played. He's one of the most consistently interesting creatives in contemporary gaming, and I'm honestly a little optimistic and interested in Hotel Barcelona, which is a game that hasn't come out yet. But anyway, and I know how divisive me saying this is, but I think this is probably his best game. People love Suda's work or they hate it, and I feel like within the fans of his work, there's definitely a consistent structure you'll find in the rankings of it. I haven't played all of his games yet, so I'll talk briefly about the few that I have played in a small-ish tier list of sorts, starting with a nice and easy, totally non-controversial last place pick. So let's see what past me was cooking here, shall we? No More Heroes is a good game that I really want to love as much as everyone else. Don't get me wrong, I really like this game, it just isn't my favorite. While a good and fun hack and slash at its best, it's an incredibly tedious job simulator that completely kills the pacing of what should be a fast-paced and chaotic comedic gem. It is still a good game, don't get me wrong, just not the best. Then we've got Shadows of the Damned, which I have done an entire essay on and remade, and it's still an okay piece. It's not my favorite essay, but it's an okay essay on a pretty good game. Shadows is a bit underrated in all honesty, and while it definitely feels pretty juvenile in the humor, it's so interesting to see, and again, I recommend it a lot. And of course, in the number one slot, we've got a controversy because it's Lollipop Chainsaw by a landslide. And I will specify original Lollipop Chainsaw. Most people tend to have this one in the middle of the list or in third place, but I have reason to say it's my favorite. And yeah, I've already stated all of that and will continue to state. It's a gem, it's so awesome, it's so cool, and I will stand by my opinions on this game. Within the game, there's a simple little base area, if you will, and it's Juliet's room. This is where you can view everything you need to collect and everything you've collected for you to satiate your completionist desires. First on docket is the titular Lollipops, and more specifically, the wrappers. There's about 40 wrappers to collect, and they come in a variety of flavors and are earned through a variety of modes and difficulty. They make a lot of sense being a collectible, given that Juliet loves lollipops. Another big collectible is the named zombies. I may have mentioned them earlier, but there's 35, 40 of them, and each of them have a different description that are often pretty funny. Again, shout out to the zombie that choreographed an entire hour-long dance to Pink Floyd's The Wall alone in her room in front of her mirror. These two things require that you play on hard mode to acquire them all, with one or two needing to be gotten in the ranked mode. And, please keep in mind we're talking about the original game here. We're not talking about RePop. We'll get to what RePop does in a minute. Speaking of, for 100% completion, you need to put a time on the leaderboard for every level, which means you need to do one run on each level in ranked mode. Ranked mode is cool, and while I only did the score attack time trials, there's a medal and time attack trial. Score attack is pretty simple. You need to perform as perfectly as you can. I've also forgot to mention that every time you finish a level, you get a report card and a ranking based on things like how fast you beat the level, how many zombie medals you collected, how many platinum coins you collected, your number of zombies killed in sparkle hunting mode, and you get points deducted for how many times you die in the level. Point is, it's an easy thing to understand and encourages you to go fast and kill zombies with style and grace. So get to it, kid. Go kick some undead ass. Another collectible in the room is the phone calls. These are impossible to miss as you earn them by playing through the story, and they're pretty simple little audio gags that expand the lore. It's also how you interact with Mom throughout the game, and we love Mom, she's great. There's some fun ones in there, and again, you can't miss them, so go give them a listen. There's also a section for achievements, and those are a given, but we'll get to some of them later on. But for now, just know they're tracked in the game as well as on whatever platform you're playing it on. And last of all is the overall items section. This one is something else, because there's way too much to collect here. You gotta collect all of the upgrades, all of the background music, all of the concept art, all of the combos, and all of the costumes. These in the original ended up totaling to some 140 items total, and it's mostly not so bad to collect. The combos kinda come naturally as you want to experiment with some different movesets until you find the one you love. The background music is, again, an easy one to want to grab because there's a lot of really good music in there. Once again, a really big shout out to First Date Zombie Edition, because those tracks go hard, or that track goes hard as hell, and the concept art really should have cost zombie medals instead of platinums, but hey, it's a small nitpick because a lot of the concept art is really good, and for a while I even had a piece of the concept art as my phone's lock screen, because yeah, it's some good stuff. Among all the good things within the game is one set of collectibles that was a nightmare to get all of, and it's the costumes. These are definitely a choice that, from what I can tell, was the result of studio demands, because a lot of them are hypersexualized. I mean, just look at the Shell Bikini and Sexy Rider outfit, if you're so inclined. Because Jesus the Christ, it's a lot. That said, a lot of the other outfits are kind of fun and goofy, like Mom's outfit and the Japanese maid outfit, which insults you for wearing it even though it's a good costume. The key problem with the outfits is that it takes way too many platinum medals to unlock everything. By the end of the game, to get every outfit that I hadn't grabbed, I needed some 300 plus platinum medals, which took an extremely long time to get, let me tell you that much. And yet, I don't resent the grind that I went on to get all the outfits. Where in most games I would have complained about getting the last few things towards the end, in this game, I actually recommend going for everything. While it can be incredibly tedious to do it all, it's a worthwhile endeavor. Now, for the big old thing everyone wants when they play the game, the achievements. There are 50 of these little bastards, and they're all okay and easy enough challenges to not be a problem. If anything, you'll get most of them in a casual playthrough, or you'll get them first try. Except for 2, and dear lord are they a nightmarish 2 achievements. The first one I'll talk about is the Love Nick achievement. To unlock this, you'll need to kiss Nick 100 times, and you won't get anywhere near this without fixating on it. To kiss Nick, you need to use a consumable called a Nick ticket. You can carry 9 Nick tickets at a time, and it takes 3,000 zombie medals to get all of the necessary tickets, and this relies on certain things going right. What does that mean, you may ask? Well, upon using a Nick tick, you'll be thrown into Nick Roulette, which has 4 powers by the end of the game and a chance to miss. And you'll need to land on one of the powers in order to get the kiss, and if you miss, you've wasted the ticket and will need to get another one. This isn't a complicated achievement by any means, but it's beyond tedious to do. But hey, I managed without a lot of stress. However, there is one achievement that almost broke me and my iron resolve to do stupid things. No fear of heights. Remember earlier when I mentioned the goddamn gondola game and how easy it is given the gun? Well, what if I told you there's an achievement for beating it without shooting a single bullet, and it's one of the worst things I've ever had to do in any game. The run is so RNG heavy that it hurts, and my successful run took 30 continues to unlock, sending my score well into the negatives. It was hellish, but I got it done and probably lost many a year off my life, and this was the sacrifice I made. And was it worth it? Hell yeah, it was! Are you kidding me? This game rules, and I can't recommend completing this enough because it's so fun, even if there are 2 nightmarish tasks to do. And now, this is the fun part where I get to talk about how the remake kinda messes with all of this. The remake has more costumes all in all, and it's all nice, classic, good, you love to see it. The thing about it, though, is that there's more costumes, but those aren't the worst thing to get. It's actually a lot easier to get platinum medals in RePop. The big thing, though, is they changed how the time trial mode works. Instead of it being level to level and way easier that way, it is a full game speed run. And I get why they want to do it that way, but I do think it takes away a lot from doing classic time trials the way it always was. And, you know, that's just me. I still think I like the level-to-level design. I think it's a lot smoother, it works a lot better. Mostly just because full game speedruns can be really tedious, especially if you die in a later level and it starts that level all the way from the beginning. It doesn't feel good, you know what I mean? It really is just one of the biggest issues I have with completing the remake. Because, like, I love this game, I really do. But RePop has so many issues, and I think I'll get more into those issues specifically when in the next section, when we wrap things up properly. Okay, alright, back to scripted. Bye-bye. I need to acknowledge how absolutely pointless it is to analyze this game. I can say all of these fancy statements while overanalyzing Juliet's character, and I can say how much I appreciate the humor and music, or I can talk about how fun the characters are and how dumb the story is. But does it matter? Well, yeah, it matters a lot, actually. A good game should have good characters and good music. Hell, it should have a good story, but at a bare minimum, the gameplay should be enjoyable. And this game is enjoyable as hell! With everything I've just told you, you already know what I'm gonna rate this game. My final rating for Lollipop Chainsaw Original is a perfect 10 out of 10, and it is genuinely among my favorite games ever made. This game is absolutely perfect, and while it can be a bit grindy to unlock all of the costumes for a true 100%, it's some of the most fun I've had in years while completing a game. It's a game that feels like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls meets Dead Rising 2. which I have actually loosely covered Dead Rising 2, and covered Beyond the Valley of the Dolls in a video that did way better than I ever could have expected. And it's truly an amazing creation. Now, I do want to take a moment to say that my rating for RePop is different, because RePop is disappointing to me, just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, it's really good. I got the collector's edition of it because I have a mental illness and I love this game so much, and it's like the only official merch this game is ever gonna get. So I did get that, and I don't regret my choices. It is the best way to play the game if you don't have the ability to play the original version of it. But I mean, it's an 8 out of 10, like, as a whole. It fumbles a lot, and it's a couple steps back for the steps it took forward. But hey, whatever. It's not the worst way to experience the game. I'm sure there's ways you can fix that to be a little better if you like get the PC version and you mod the soundtrack to add back in the licensed music. But that's a different problem for a different day, not my jurisdiction. I'm sorry. Anyways, and as always, my name is A Leg of Glazed Ham, and thank you for listening to me talk about this unhinged game. It really, really means a lot, as always. And also, hey, thanks for listening to this as a remake essay that I did on very short notice because life is hectic like that, and you gotta just do this kind of thing sometimes. Anyways, thanks again, and good night.